Hello, Patrick Jones.
Stephen caught me in half a cough.
Oh no! Oh no!
I was just doing a Peter Pepper. Pick the peckable.
This is me.
La 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 la.
So, hello again, everybody. Today we're joined by living art legend and art master Patrick Jones.
Goodness gracious!
If you guys don't know him, where have you been? We have so many different videos with Patrick on the channel. We have a bunch of different courses of Patrick's. He's got books. You're going to see people in the chat in here across Proko, across all the internet and the socials saying Patrick taught them something and they learned something magnificent from Patrick. Or they just liked the pretty ladies in his art. We're joined by Patrick. Thank you. Today we're joined by Patrick because Patrick has a brand new course that you guys can find over at, where's my URLs? At this URL on screen right now, or the URL that's in the chat, or in the description. Patrick's brand new course is called what, Patrick?
That's a good question, Stephen. Drawing the epic female fantasy figure from imagination. I'll try that one more time. Drawing the epic fantasy female figure from imagination. There you go. Emphasis.
For this course, it's kind of like it's a supplementary connective thing. You were talking to me about this, and I was getting to review some of the videos of it. It kind of connects a lot of the different things that you've taught before, some of the things that were in your book, and I think some of the questions that people have asked you for some specific, more targeted resources on, where they wanted you to do a deeper dive on something that wasn't in one of your books or in another course that they were seeing before.
Yeah, it's just like that. It's like when you read a book and you go, I got that bit, I got this bit, and there's a million questions in between those bits that you can't ask the book. It's that. So basically, it's a chance to sit and watch over my shoulder as I go through the minutiae of drawing, how many problems come up that you wouldn't even think to ask the question for. It's all there. And I was talking with Stephen just beforehand about how I went into a studio and found things that I didn't even know existed. I had the questions that I couldn't ask because I didn't know what the questions were answered by these masters. And I never even thought of that. And it grew my skills exponentially. I just could not believe how much I didn't know and didn't even know that I didn't know. So it's 14 hours of looking over my shoulder as I draw and say, this happened, that happened. And it has the guffs as well. There'll be lots of clangers for me to say the reason this didn't work is that, So you see these thick demos and it's all about, it's perfect. When we all know that 70% of the time we hit a roadblock and we got to jump that hurdle. It's all that. It's all the hurdles. And what do you do when you hit them? It's that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Like, I think that you phrased it in a magnificent way earlier. You said the things that you run into the things that you didn't even know to ask questions about yet.
Yeah.
You didn't know what you didn't know.
Didn't know what I didn't know. And there's so much of that,
Yeah.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
But you will.
But you will.
Yeah. So we'll be sharing some demos that come from this course, and Patrick will be talking about those, taking questions from the chat. If you're a person who's watching it right now live, thank you for being here. You guys can save 20% off on that course while it's in pre-sale for the next little bit here, for the next couple weeks or so. If you guys are watching in the future, and this was in the past, what's it like out there? And second, you can still buy that course. It's a really good one. So I'm going to hand it over to Patrick. He's going to we're going to stack up some questions here in the chat for Patrick to deal with as we go through it. And let's see Patrick draw some stuff.
Yeah. And, I'll tell you, this is a perfect example of it as well, because John said to me, can you do a live demo? But record it beforehand because we had trouble before. Mm-hmm. And like everything, I had a ton of stuff to do. And then I only had a couple of hours to do it. And so there was no chance to do anything sleight of hand, I had to actually go in there and just put on my big boy pants and go, look, there's no time for even warm-ups here. There was a little bit of time. But not enough. And that's the perfect studio experience. You go in and you go, okay, I'll get some tea and toast. And they go, no time for tea and toast. this needs done in 10 minutes. We need to get a sketch roughly done in 10 minutes for this art director to approve. And you're off into the hot oil right away. So it's kind of like that. And so you'll see me draw here. These are drawings that no one's seen before. I've not even seen them. I just did them the other day.
Yeah, I only got to see just a little bit of them just as I was going through it for the sake of this. But
yeah,
like every mark and stroke that you place in here will be a surprise to me.
It'll be a surprise to me because it was such a whirlwind. I went, okay, yeah, that seemed okay. Let's have a look at it tomorrow. And that's always the thing as well. Steve Houston said it. He said he does this great drawing and he comes back the next morning. He says, "Who ruined that?" So it's we're going to see. Well, let's have a look at it and see. All right. So what I'll do is I'll talk over it because it's got no voiceover on it. Hey, Stephen, what's this, by the way? Because you know so much that I don't know. See, the things you don't know. I have got these little fairy moths that fly across my video, and I don't know what. And they're not here. It's some kind of magical. Maybe it's magic.
I think it's probably dust closer to the lens catching the light from your display.
That's what it is. It's micro stuff, isn't it?
Yeah,
I can see the dust.
The course is about fantasy drawing, Patrick. This is perfect. Yeah.
Stephen, that's genius. I'm looking at it now and I'm going, it has to be that. Yeah, it's the micro, tiny little dust and it looks like a big fairy.
Mm-hmm.
What a grub. What a grub. I've got to clean that. I exposed myself as a grub.
I like it.
It all looks great back here, but there's a spider web over there. Okay, right. Grub exposed. Shall I go ahead, Stephen? Shall I start?
Yeah, feel free.
And please ask tons of questions. That doesn't.
Yes, please.
No, I can answer them even when I am drawing live. But let's consider this live. So the first thing when I draw, especially if it's going to be, let's say, cold, which means I haven't been drawing all day, and that's what this kind of situation was. I did do a couple of drawings, but I was very cold, really. So what I do is usually do a big sheet of streams of consciousness, just lots of big marks, and make sure that pencil is behaving itself. So here I'm going to do a micro version of that. I'm going to do just a little bit of streams of consciousness on the side. Now notice when I'm scratching away on this little nitrum pad, a student recommended it. A student came in with his pad one day, and I had my little tiny pad, and I felt so emasculated. I went, "Where did you get that big pad?" And I had to send for it from Europe, and it's fantastic. So what I'm doing here is making sure I've got the perfect pencil. This is a 1710. You can see a little bit of a scratch on it there. So I'm going to give that another little turn on the sandpaper block. And what I do as I'm trying this out, I'm turning it over and over until I don't see a scratch on that little swathe. Now, all my fingers are right down on the page there. So I'm not balancing like you do on those overhand grips, like you sign your name. So I'm totally at ease here. I'm skating along the surface by having all my fingers on the surface. And you might go, but why doesn't that dirty the surface? The strange thing is that once you get used to it, your hand is so light, but still firm enough that you don't even make a mark with dirty fingers. I'm amazed by it. It's one of those things you don't know until you know. So don't worry about how dirty your hand is after a while, because it adds to not making greasy marks, because our hands are greasy. Whether we like to think about it or not, there's oil on our hands. That's how we are. Otherwise, we'd have hands that are all flaky.
Mm-hmm.
So this is me making lots of marks. Now, notice that the underhand grip is just phenomenal. It means I can make a straight line all the way down. I can turn. I can go upside down. I can do anything. And sure, I was like every student. I went, this is madness. Why would I forego this wonderful grip that I've known all my life to do this crazy ape-like thing? And then you soon realize that there's nothing more elegant than that grip. It is just changed my life when I learned.
It gives you the space to be able to make this much broader range of marks: a thin mark, a thick mark, softer taper, feathered edges.
Yeah, and a giant circle, if you like. Mm-hmm. Try and doing that with the detail hand. Yeah. But we will use it. Well, let's demonize the detail hand. We will use it from time to time. But I have my spider senses on all the time that if I turn on the detail hand, I go, get out of here as soon as you can. Now, what I'm doing here is all still testing the pencil. But what I want to show everyone is that a face doesn't have to be complicated. All we need is an ovoid, which you've seen me draw. And before I go any further, my hand is still it's making broad marks because all of the fingers are on the page. So all of this is on the page. So I start every drawing, if I can, as low as I can, which means the broadest edge of the pencil. And look what it gives you. It materializes a face out of the ether right there. And also you're training your hand to make thin and thick lines. So you're seeing thick and thin lines already, even though they're mostly broad. But you're also seeing pressure. Look at the difference in pressure there to get that top lip and that bottom lip. It was just a slight variation of pressure to get that. And it's also totally controllable using this gestural grip. It's sensational. Now, I'm going to do lots of clangers. I call them clangers because I don't care whether they're symmetrically right or whether they're accurate, but they will become that over time. And if I do a finished drawing, which I do at the end of this course, by the way, so the end of all of these osmosis courses, I'll do a finished rendered drawing because we all want to see what is the result of all of this. And that's going to be at the end. It'll be on the 14th hour. I wish we had a better hour. It's usually on midnight, isn't it? On the 14th hour, that's how it turned out. We'll have that, or the 13th hour coming up for 14. We'll have that finished render. And I think we're going to show a bit of that. We have a demo that's going to be left on the Proko platform, I think, Stephen. We should have talked this on. There's a free demo.
This is the where you're discovering things along the way. This is the in-studio experience you were talking about.
It's exactly that. It's exactly that. But watch how, if we start long, light, and loose, and broad, let's add broad to that. If we start broad, light, long, and loose, meaning longest lines first, biggest shapes first, and the broadest sense of it first, look how we can make a delicate little face. Because remember, this course is drawing from imagination. I'm pulling this face out of the ether from imagination. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to use the same technique to draw a barbarian. Because, once again, Stephen, I talked to John. Are we doing a 20% off all my courses?
That's a good question.
I think John said that.
I know that there's a 20% off on the pre-sale for this course in particular, for certain. Everyone who's in this chat, I'm going to assume that they already were smart enough to get all of your other courses. So the only one they have to worry about is the new one that they can get right now at proko.com/Patrick Jones.
Nice one, Stephen. Nice one. Because what this course is, it goes between, I would say, because the students they've hold my feet to the fire. The students said, what should I do first? And I go, do anything you like, but really that's my mindset. But a growth mindset is, well, I want to start where my passion is, and I'll grow it from there. That's my growth mindset. But let's say you've got the growth mindset where you go, I know I'll improve faster if I do it in stages that are akin to my kind of learning. And so like I say, they held my feet to the fire, and I went, okay, well, I started with fantasy female figures, which is advanced. I went in there with apprentice to wizard, which is the beginner. This is in between. This is a chance to look over my shoulder as we take the knowledge from wizardry through to the fantasy female figure and find out what are all the hurdles in between. That's what this is. This is really honing your skills in the studio.
Mm-hmm. I do have a couple comments here so far, if you want them, Patrick.
Please, I love questions.
So first and foremost, I want to point out that Proko team member Patrick Bosworth, anyone who is on Proko, you've probably interacted with Patrick in some capacity. Patrick said that he loves the idea of getting the clangers out. I agree. Yeah. I think two important parts of sitting down to start working on any piece of art or a drawing session that day. One thing is the idea of just sitting down and working your hand into being warmed up, and not just in the way of like drawing some ellipses or anything, but really like actually giving yourself something that you draw, and then starting with an easy win. You don't want to sit down and start drawing something that you intend to be your magnum opus, the greatest piece of art you'll ever make, because then you're bothered by the thing that you didn't do.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. And I did do a poll that I was asking people if they use the overhand grip, and
Yeah.
we got 57% just a hard no.
Good Lord Almighty. I wonder if within that 57% is that mostly digital artists because they don't have a chance for
Fair.
the overhand grip.
That's
Maybe
fair.
it's that.
That is a good way to look at this. Science. You got to
Yeah.
interpret the numbers. Look for the
Yeah.
bias in the question. I like it.
Right. Yeah. I would say for those artists, what I would do, I'll just pause this for a second. What I would say is do both.
Mm,
Because if you look, I often think about Justin Sweet as a good example. Justin Sweet is really well versed in digital and traditional. But every time I meet him in a convention, he's drawing traditional every
hmm.
single time because he knows the skills there elevate his art way beyond the other artists that are only using the digital platform because he's learning so much from the traditional method to take into the digital method. And there's a lot of, and I hesitate here because I don't want to say it's too easy, the digital method, because it's not easy at all, but it gives you too many options to rely on throwing a dice. And then
Mm.
you have 50 layers and you go, I don't know how I got here, but I'm here. Whereas traditional method doesn't give you that option. It tells you you're here because you did this. You're here because you did that. And once again, in this course, she'll look over my shoulder and maybe I'll flag a little bit. I'll go, well, that was a clanger. And the reason for that was I should have had a sip of water. You know, it could be anything at all. It could be a million different reasons for it. But the main thing is you don't worry. You enjoy the process. And I was watching the TED talk because I do it to make myself sound and feel smarter just by watching and listening to smart people.
Certainly.
But and yeah, and I do believe I'm getting a little bit smarter with it. And there was great research into it's not really about your IQ that makes you a better anything, a better artist. Of course, it'll help. If you're smarter, you're going to go faster. But these kids that were disadvantaged were learning really much faster in these schools because instead of being told you're wrong, the answer they were given on their whatever exam they were doing in between exams, you know, was not yet instead of wrong. And with
Hmm.
not yet, they were encouraged to go, okay, I must be nearly there then. And it really encouraged them to go further. And so they had this positive mindset right away. It's not yet, but I'll be there soon. And they did. They got there. So this negative door closing of wrong, wrong, wrong was making them curl up into a ball and going, I'm never going to get this.
Yeah.
And just by luck, I always felt that anyway. I never had any dissuasion. I never thought, if anyone says you're wrong, I went, I don't care. I really love doing this, right or wrong. And I just kept doing it. So
Hmm.
I had that not yet in my heart because it didn't matter to me, right or wrong, didn't make any sense. That binary, right or wrong, didn't compute because
And
I
it
was
doesn't
going to do this anyway.
and it doesn't work with art. That's not
It
what
doesn't.
how art works. You know, there's some rules and structures, but each of those is just a baseline for something that you build off of. You can
Yeah,
and you can build into it or build away from it with intention, you know?
well said, Stephen.
Um,
I'm, I'm
do
just
you
going to
want
clean up.
your
You've got hold on. You've got a little bit of that dust on your face. Let me just clean that
Oh,
for you.
is it all this right here?
No, no, it's just on my screen. There we go. So
Uh,
another clean that later.
would you like the video back?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I paused it. There's that dust again. I'm pretty sure I paused it for a reason. Okay, so what I'm doing here is using exactly the same method again, because method is, let's just say, because I'm going into territory here where people would say, "Oh, method, it's such a rigid thing." But if we can be flexible in the method and we have some kind of base method, it really expedites everything. So I'll just pause this for a second. You saw me draw the female face. It was an ovoid. It was a broad shape for the eyes, which are the center. And I've dropped the pencil down because I've already done the, let's say I'm already done the wizardry course. And I know that the eyes are halfway. If we drew a line, if I draw a line now, I'm going back in time. If I draw a halfway line, I go, that's method. But if I draw a broad line that encompasses the center and the eyebrows at the same time, it's method with feeling. So I'm feeling the shape of it, the shadow of it, the curve of it, which you can't do with a line. A line is very much a singular thing. It's the singularity. So it's the beginning of everything, but you don't want to bring it with you everywhere and go, I can only draw a face if I draw this halfway line first. Because you're
Mm.
just thinking halves then. That's got to be a subconscious thing after a while. So you often hear me talk about the subconscious art engine. And it's that, yes, that line's in there, but it's so deep back in the subconscious. And I've drawn it so many times, now it's a broad shape. It encompasses two things. And now it encompasses three, four, five things. It encompasses the glabella, and we now know there's a hollow between the forehead and the nose, for instance, that goes in and goes out again. So that's the glabella. And it's all encompassed within this eye and eyebrow. And once I have that, I'm off and running again. So the subconscious art engine just got more sophisticated. It has this broad shape that used to be a line. And that's just one of those millions of things. It's one of those tiny minutiae of a gigantic wealth of knowledge that you're going to enjoy in these 14 hours and continue to enjoy beyond that by looking over my shoulder. And that's what I think is really missing. I truly remember those days with great fondness, that there was someone else there to show me the way, that I was no
Mhm.
longer in my little bedroom trying to work this stuff out. And that was great too. But you get out of that hurdle, you go, I'm never going to get this because you don't even know the question. And
Mhm.
so we're back to where we are here.
There was
Now look at
there's
go ahead,
I was
Stephen,
there was one question here that I think
please.
kind of attaches to what you were saying, or what you were mentioning. So Richard Shepard in the chat asked, "I have real issues with noses as well as heads tilting up. Any tips?"
Ah, absolutely. So make it simple. Let's not get complicated. So when I draw a nose, you can already see my glasses fit on my nose. You see that? That's not a coincidence. They fit glasses are on your nose. So you can already see from the glabella here, that's not a coincidence that this fits in there. So they fit glasses around your face. So everything's, it's all, we're being designed around. And so you can see these lines are already taking you down to that point. So there you go. There's a triangle and it gets smaller here like that. So you don't draw a nose, you draw that. And then after a while, you might draw this M shape here. M, down and up. I'm doing a reverse here. This is a reverse. So you can see that's an M. You can see that's an M. But if I turn my nose up like this, oh no, you can see my beauty light. You see that? You get a triangle like this. So nose up triangle, nose down, M. You see that? And then you see another triangle, a reverse. It's a V actually now. Do you see that? It's a V like that. But it all started with just that one triangular shape. And then you get, of course, feel your nose. Feel it. Do that. Feel it down. You can see that this is the same as right here, the philtrum, And if you take the chin like this, it's the same as your nose. See that? So there's this kind of universal size. Now, it's not for everyone, of course, but it's a good start. It's a good start that you're going to get that. And it's also here. It's also in the voice box. This size here is your voice box in there. See that? So but remember, these are basic shapes. They're just very basic. Once again, it's a basic shape that you now have in your subconscious art engine that you can go triangle, up, an up triangle, down a V, straight ahead an M, draw that 100 times, and you don't even think about it anymore. And you can
Mhm.
see me do it in this drawing right now. So if we go back to the drawing,
Yeah.
uh,
I will say, I think that some of the stuff that you were mentioning there, there's a way that you approach drawing with mnemonic devices, comparisons to other things, rather than it having to be just you rendering this this kind of like triangular pyramid shape of something. You let things relate to each other with something that is, like you were mentioning, with the shape of the M, this
yeah,
upwards triangle. I think you break it down in a way where a lot of people might have this hard time because they kind of over intellectualize and make
yes,
this really academic approach to something,
yeah.
and then get kind of just stuck in it rather than just looking for some shapes.
That's a brilliant point there, Stephen, because you can get, I mean, it's all great, but you can get bogged down in academia. You can definitely get bogged down into that, where really is a binary system, right or wrong. And I totally rail against right or wrong, because I think everything is right. Every mistake is a learning experience. And if you learn to step back and see the simplicity of it, I mean, look right now at these eyebrows. Do you see that? That's a big W. See that? With ends to it, a big W. And we could say all of this stuff, we could start going into the anatomy of it and say these are anatomical parts. But for the most part, it's a bridge circle that's a little bit squashed like a melon, and then a little fatter here. We can swap that around. But the main thing is that from this point here, that nose can be anything, because that's where the skull ends, right there. And then this is all cartilage down to here. And then this is kind of a rubbery old bit of business here at the end where you can boing, boing, throw it around. So from this point here, you can do anything with that nose you want. Mm-hmm. And you could even have a little rubbery nose and still have a scary looking guy, because it's all based around this expression. You see that? Mm-hmm. So I'm basically drawing that female figure again, but I'm changing it very subtly to be a male figure. And you'll see what I do. Now I'm going to put a beard on this guy. And a lot of questions for this very reason, because I'm also showing that I'm moving from the wizardry course into the epic fantasy female course here during this short demo. So we could say that this is the kind of stuff you'll learn in the wizardry course to take you further. This is a demo just to link those two things. So halfway through here, I'll switch into epic fantasy female figure mode. One of the big questions all the time, because I'm listening, is how do we draw hair? How do we draw beards? Try not to think of the beard to begin with. Draw the face without the beard. All we really need is that nose and the bottom lip. So you see I've put the bottom lip in and I put the nose in. Now the very fact that I've drawn a V shape here means that head's tilted down slightly. See that? So I've slightly tilted down head, and that adds to the sinister aspect of it. Up here, can you see the cursor as well, Stephen?
I can't see your cursor, unfortunately.
You can't see the cursor? Okay. Yeah. Well, if we just go halfway in the eyeball here, there. So if we go there, that's where I pull the cheekbone out, like this. So I pull the cheekbone out at that point. And that is just one of those things, again, that you can say that cheekbone starts halfway up the head, just the same as the center of the eye. So you can call it the same thing. Now, it's a continuous bone, but that's where we see the ridge. Excuse me. So I should have done more la-la-las. Now, once I have this, another one of those many, many things that you learn, that say the eyes are measured 5 eyes across in your head. Well, it's not from where the eyes are. It's from above the eyes. So the widest part of your head is at the back, but we see it at the front. So there's the widest part of my head. We measure 5 eyes across from what we see there. And so I know where to put that big bulge right there above the ear. That's where you measure the 5 eyes. So I can get an eye in there. See that? And I can get an eye in here. That's for a figure looking straight at you. And that's how I measure it. And you can get an eye in between. The glabella can throw that off. So just imagine another eye in here between the tear ducts. Now you know how to put the eyes, how to place them. Now, sometimes you get people with eyes a little bit wider. It's very unusual. So this is very much everyone. So here goes the mustache. The mustache is coming out of your nose here. It's coming out. But I'm also encompassing here this orbicularis muscle right here. So there's 2 of them, the orbicularis oris here, the orbicularis oculi, which is the eyes. And they have all these little muscles in there that do all this.
I do want to say, for anyone who got really scared there when you started saying anatomical parts, I promise you don't need all the anatomy knowledge in the world to learn from Patrick. It's a thing that he'll refer to, but you're gonna get like some fancier anatomy terms as much as you're gonna hear Patrick say like Mr. T for a landmark on the chest and Mrs. V for a place around the hips as well.
Yeah,
you'll get both of these in equal measure. You don't need to know all your anatomy for this one.
That's right. Thanks, Stephen, for bringing that up. That is the thing as well. Because let's say I call that the tennis ball. I can call it the tennis ball because it is actually about the same size as a tennis ball. I can grab onto it like that and I pitch that tennis ball. So I can do that. But it's a really important thing because it tells you that the teeth come out like this. So you'll often see me draw from the side profile a side shape of a tennis ball like this. And that way you never have flat faces that look like people have no teeth. But
Hmm.
from front on, we never think really about this is coming toward us. We hardly ever do. But if I take a pencil, good Lord, don't tell me I don't have a pencil. Can you believe it? I'll use this toothpick.
That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Oh, I
take
can't.
this toothpick. If I take
Yeah.
that toothpick like that, that's what we're really thinking. We're thinking this is a flat surface. But if I do that, you can really see that that's
There's a
going
3D.
way back. Yeah, it's going way back, and then it comes over here, and then it goes way back again like that. That's a really important thing to know. So if we're only learning from books, we only see 2D. That's all we see.
Hmm.
So, but Andrew Loomis, of course, in those greats, described it, but not in the minutia that I do.
Yeah.
And I will, as I go along, say the anatomy because the power of osmosis is that. The power of osmosis is that if you hear it once, it'll freak you out. You hear it twice, oh, I've heard that before. You hear it 20 times and you're saying it. You're saying the orbicularis oris
Hmm.
as simply as you would say a tennis ball. And
Uh,
that means now you can go look it up on the internet.
there was
For a
one
tennis
person
ball.
here. There's
Yeah,
one
go on.
person in the chat. Craftomatic said, "I thought he was going to draw the figure of a woman."
I
Absolutely.
will. I
This is
will.
this one here. There's some demonstration stuff going on here, but also this is part of the warm up.
Yeah. And what I would say is we all know a face very well. So if you're, I'm really at the same time still testing this pencil. So you can see I'm using all the broads and stuff. And if you draw a face to begin with, you're already drawing. It's like Stephen said earlier there, a little win. Everyone can draw some kind of face quite well. And it doesn't have to be a complicated face with all the anatomy in it. An ovoid, that broad shape, halfway down from the eyebrows to the chin for the bottom of the nose, halfway down from the nose to the bottom lip, the bottom of the bottom lip, halfway again. Now, anyone can do that. And if you do that enough times, this is a good chance to warm your pencil up. So I'm going to draw lots of little faces here. And that's what the course is all about, too. It's lots of quick things. And I
Mhm.
never draw quickly. You can see that I never panic. I'm not panicking at all here. It's been a long time since I panicked. Last time I panicked, I was at Proko, and they turned the lights on and said, draw. So I panicked a little bit there.
If
And
anyone hasn't seen, there's a fantastic demo with Patrick that's on our YouTube channel. That's the panic that he's talking about, where he made this beautiful figure.
Stan had to mop my brow. He didn't really do it. He says, here, there's some tissue. And be careful what you wish for. I went there to meet everyone. It was a great moment. I really loved it. And Stan was in the corner, so I was all panicked. Is Stan watching this on another monitor? I didn't know.
He's
So
gonna
you'll
judge
get
my
that.
anatomy knowledge.
Yeah. Trial by fire. But the as you go along like this, have a look here. I'm getting more sophisticated with the darks and lights. This is not just a drawing of a face. This is a drawing to show that if you do a face like this and explore the pencil, you're already drawing something with all the sophistication of a figure. Let's say you do this in your knife draw class and you draw a face before the model comes in. When that model comes in, everyone else is panicking. Everyone's dropping their pencils. They're sweating. They need Stan to come in with a handkerchief. Where you, instead of standing in a puddle of expiration, you are drawing because you've already worked out the pencil. So I'm honing this 1710 pencil. Thanks, Jeff. I had a chat with Jeff Watts the other day on my channel.
There was a person who did actually ask about the pencil that you were using. If you want to give them this information.
Yeah, it's a Jeff Watts pencil. Yeah, I call it that. He doesn't manufacture it, but he uses 1710. And I was using, which you'll see later, my favorite pencil, but not always, but you get a batch and it breaks all the time. This is practically indestructible, this pencil. And so I do demos with it now. So I'll shout out to Jeff there. Thanks for that. Once again, surround yourself with great people. And I encourage everyone to find great people rather than be the king of the hill. Go and be someone around the hill that's watching someone that's the king of the hill, and they'll teach you lots. And once again, that's this course, come in. And if you don't know as much as I do, then you're going to learn tons. And I don't want to say king of the hill. I'm avoiding saying it after bringing it up. Let's just say I have some stuff to show you, and it's great
Yeah.
stuff. Now, look here, that face. Look how much more confidence this pencil has. Look how much faster I'm working, and I'm not going any faster. My confidence is better. I'm drawing with a lot more swerve here because I've already warmed the pencil up. It's a great pencil. I'm no longer concerned with the tools. I never was. But if you are, you won't be by this point. Now look at that nose that I talked about. Do you remember the glasses and the nose? There it is
Mhm.
there. It's not a triangle anymore. It's what I like to think of as a gestural structure. It has a curve to it. So you can start with boxes, you can start with tubes, and then what I do is I bend them to make sure that every one of them has a curve to them. And you can work in and out of that curve just as well as you can work in and out of a straight. And for me, I am already on a different plane now. I'm in the gestural world, even with structure. Gestural structure. I remember saying that to Stan. I remember going, it's gestural structure. And I did it with a magic, do the magic hands. And of course, Stan seeing through it and he said, isn't that just structure and gesture? And I said, no, Stan, it's gestural structure. And he got it. He went, oh, gestural structure.
It's different.
Because yeah. And it is different because it's a different mindset. So now you're working as an artist rather than a mechanic. So you have the mechanics. They are these subconscious whispers. But now you're drawing. And the minute you're drawing gesture like I'm doing here with structure, you're no longer thinking about anything other than the drawing. And that's the nirvana. That's the nirvana of it. So I'm able to take what you've seen on the left there and just take those shapes and re-squeeze them or re-expand them and reshape them every way I like. Because at the end of the day, that eye was an almond and now it's an onion. But it still has at the very top inside a rounder curve and on the bottom side a straighter curve, no matter what I do. So it'll get bigger and rounder, but it always has those dynamics where the bottom lid is straighter across. And if I had the cursor, I would show you, but basically your eye goes up really fast like that. So have a look at it. So this bottom lid is quite straight. This is much more curved on the top, but we go up really fast on the outside like that.
Mm.
And the top lid overlaps the bottom lid, which you can see very clearly now. You can see with my eyelashes there that it does that.
Mm-hmm.
So think about that all the time. We don't really wink with both top and bottom eye lids. We only wink with the top lid. The bottom really doesn't move. See that? I'm blinking with the top lid. So knowing that tells me that the bottom lid is quite structured. It has quick straights on it, and the top lid has got all the curve to it.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think there's those like intuitive things that you don't notice until you actually try to really like clock them. Like that's why it looks so weird when Muppets talk, because the top of their head is moving instead of the bottom part. But as humans, when we speak, it's the jaw that moves down typically.
That's right.
And so like Muppets look hilarious because why is the top of their head going everywhere?
Yeah. And it's great, isn't it? And I love it. And that's the great thing about all of art. Is that once you know the rules, you can just break them and it creates something much more unique. And so I'm breaking the rules all the time. So I don't like to call them rules. They're methods and they're flexible. Let's call them flexible methods. So the minute you've got that flexible method and you've got the authority to do anything you want, then you've got the freedom to be a great artist.
Patrick,
So
I have we got so many questions from people. I think
Go ahead.
during this warm-up part as this plays, would you be okay answering some of these questions in a little bit of a lightning round?
Love them. Give me tons of questions. I thrive.
Right. We're gonna hit these so fast. So Tethered Pencil asks, how much time does a full figure with shading take you when you take your time?
Another brilliant question. It takes however long it used to take. Now, it used to take me 6 hours. It used to take me all day. It used to take me 2 days. But most of that time was spent correcting errors because I didn't know what I was doing. Mm-hmm. So you'll eventually get there if you've got the passion for it. So my longevity is down to that passion. And I know it's been bandied around passion, as a trope, but it truly was. And it's to do with that, that open mindset of I will do this come hell or high water, I will get this. And so it never bothered me at all. that there was frustration in it because I just thought I just learned something new there every single time. And so now I would say a rendered figure. If I really went in their boots and all and went, I'm going to just be so indulgent, I'm going to spend 3 hours. That would be my max on a rendered drawing.
Mm-hmm.
In these courses, I'll bring it down to an hour and a half. I'm not going any faster. I'm just not putting so much in. And what I find is that I like it better. So there's a point, and it's usually a third from the end where my drawing's at its peak. And then I over render it. And that's ego. So the ego is a 3-hour drawing. People love it. I'm glad they do. But for me, it already reached its peak. And so for these osmosis courses, I'll stop at the peak and say, this is the peak. And then I'll take it beyond that peak and I'll say, what do you think now? Do you agree with me? The peak was here. And so the peak is the placard I use for the course. And then it goes beyond that. And I don't think it got any better. Mm-hmm. But it will be that. That's the kind of stuff you hit when you go into a professional arena and the art director says, we need more detail. And you'll give it to them. And they'll love it and they'll love you for it. But in your mind, you still go, it was better if you had more confidence, the confidence I have, that that's a better thing to show unfinished art or what the world sees as unfinished art, because it gives the audience a conversation. They say, oh, I can see what that can be, rather than here it all is. Mr. Ego said, that's it done. And you can just admire it, you know? Yeah. So I admire unfinished drawings more than finished drawings now.
I agree. Yeah, I think it lets you participate and idealize in the way that works exactly for you, rather than having everything handed to you.
Yeah, and I love it. And I love walking around when I'm teaching a class to see the unfinished stuff that the students are doing, because I know that it's very close to ruination. I know they're just about to put that unnecessary render on. But they have to go there. They have to go there to find what is the maximum output here as far as artistic expression goes. And anything beyond that is muscle flexing. Flex away, you know. My big idea is that do everything and find out what it is that you really want. What is it you want from all this?
You know, what you really, really want.
What do you really, really, really? Who sang that, Stephen?
That's the Spice Girls.
Is it the Spice Girls?
Yeah. Zig zig ah.
Yeah. You see, even the Spice Girls, and I don't want to be derogatory there, they had great wisdom, didn't they?
Yeah, they stopped while they were ahead also.
Yeah. I mean, that's great philosophy. Do what you want, what you really, really want, and you will create great art. Now, what I want to say again is, now we've drawn 3 faces here. Look at the confidence and the speed of this one compared to the first one. First one was okay, but look at it now. So this is repetition and enjoying the process. Enjoying the process is going back to that growth mindset. Enjoying the process will speed your ability to draw faster than I'm going to do 10 drawings. So when a student always says to me, you know, there's just different ways of thinking. I'll say, give me a bunch of roughs and we'll see what one we can render. And they'll go, how many roughs? And I'll go, whenever you feel that you've had enough and you've reached some conclusion. And they say, but how many? And I say 10. And they come back with 10 and not 11.
Yeah.
And not 9.
Never 9. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's fine. Okay. But the idea is that you just repeat ideas until you think, you know, that's an exhaustive thing. I am no longer interested in 11 ideas. So 10 will get you anything. I learned a long time ago that I used to give art directors an abundance of roughs or comps, whatever you want to call them. And I realized that if you give them 6, they're going to ask for 20. If you give them 3, they can pick 1 out of 3. So you've released them of the burden of what your job is, which is to inspire them to pick 1 of 3. Because those 3 are way enough for them their imaginations to blossom. That 1,000 blossoms bloom from 3. And I never gave more than 3 after that, because I knew that it was going to be endless.
Absolutely.
So,
it's like
for
all of my my fellow American watchers out there right now, when was the last time that you walked into the aisle with all of the Pringles potato chips and you really took in the 37 different options that are there? Or did you look at the one that you like, one that was kind of like that, but maybe slightly different, and then grabbed that?
Yeah,
Like, having an overabundance of them does nothing.
it doesn't. I remember someone says, when you see an old guy in a restaurant, and it's the same restaurant he goes up to all the time, you might go, oh, he's dull, he doesn't want to explore. And he's not really. He's working to his optimum. He knows that he has from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock to get something really nice to eat, and he will get it in that restaurant that he knows has got good food in it. But if you're in the city for a week, go and try another one. You've got all week to do it. But he's working to his optimum level because he's realized he's been here before and he's been disappointed 100 times. He will get the best food that night that's possible within that time frame. So it's a bit like that. You got to cut yourself a break a million times. And the way to do that is, like Stephen said earlier, give yourself the win. Give yourself a little 10-minute win every morning. Don't draw for more than 10 minutes, any drawing at all. I think the most disastrous idea is to wake up and go, I'm going to draw a masterpiece. I'll start now. It's going to be a disaster. Look at how these little drawings are getting better and better because they're little wins, every single one. And look here, we just created the segue into drawing female figures now. So I've drawn a lot of male figures there. And to show you that it's all easy within the realm of just simple shapes. This female figure started the same as the male figures. And the only thing that's changed here is the roundness of form. Little changes, the volume of the lips. Doesn't have to be more voluminous, but I've put that in there. She still has that face of determination and anger, but we still have undoubtedly a female face right there. Bring the cheekbones up. Of course, we're not going to put a beard on there, unless you like. I mean, let's call out to the bearded ladies. Let's call out to the bearded ladies. It's all beautiful stuff. But this is just tiny little changes to get us from a male to a female figure in a traditional sense. Now, let's get into this female figure.
All right.
So you can see a clanger on the left there. Now, it depends what level you're at. You might go, boy, it looks pretty good to me. But I can see the torso's too long. I can see a million things there, but it's in the ballpark. I don't care. I'll show you everything, clangers and all, to show you that, yes, there's magic. It's a magical thing that we can make marks on a 2D surface, and it creates the image in your mind of a 3D object. You go, wow, that's incredible. But at the same time, it's also doable by someone that's not a savant. It's not a genius working here. It's just me, Patrick, the bog boy, the guy that picked potatoes in Ireland, mixed cement on building sites, joined the Navy, all that stuff. It's basically process. I have always loved drawing. When I was in the Navy, I was drawing all the time. Not on the building side. That had to go. You can't draw on the building side. But
I did that one.
Did you do that as well?
Absolutely. Me and Stephen Bauman both. There's something wrong with those Stevens. They like drawing on buildings.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, you mean you drew on the building side, like graffiti?
Oh, yes. Yes, exactly this.
Oh, I meant I didn't have time on the building site mixing cement to draw a picture. I was actually working on the building site. But you were graffitiing. I would have to clean that off. So that's where I was. So you can do anything. And even in those days, which, to be honest, I wasn't keen on. I enjoyed being in the sun. I enjoyed the exercise. I needed to draw. And so I found a way to do that, whatever way I could. And so the Navy was a good way to do that because I had lots of time off and I was getting a wage. So that was a great relief. And I had loads of time to draw. So a pencil, paper can be found anywhere in the world. Now, what I'm doing here while I was blabbering away there, I'm drawing these shapes now that are in the course, in the wizardry course, a lot like this, but in a simpler term. What I'm doing here is flying with those shapes. You can see that this is a fleshy figure, and it has transformed from tubes. We talked about the Liberty Bell. You can sort of see it as a phantom in there. Talked about this last time, Stephen. And the Liberty Bell is basically the shape I get for the hips. And now I'm finessing around that shape We'll see the Liberty Bell again in a minute. But basically, there is the hips where they peak. Now, the hips go all the way around. So if we only say there's the peak, we can only draw a figure from the front. This is a curve that goes around. That's why I've drawn the curve going around the back there, to show you that hips are high at the back and low at the front for everyone, and more so for the female figure. But it's those little landmarks. I'm popping them out there with the eraser, kneadable eraser, my favorite eraser, to show you that there's a drop down here before the leg inserts. Now, here's one of my big mnemonics. A 1970s belt. Big buckle. That's easier for me to remember than the 3-finger gap, which was a great mnemonic from Glenn Vilpo. But you often think of 3 fingers like that instead of this, which is the same thickness as a belt. But that's the model's finger. So when you see a model without a belt on, then just look at their fingers. And if they're on their hips, they're usually like that. That's the distance between the iliac crest down to the insertion of the leg. And so the leg bends below that. And that's what I'm showing there. So you can see me messing around. There's lots of little clangers on the left. You can see that that arm is way too long where I've hinged it and pulled it back out. Doesn't matter. I can see it. So the clangers give you the grace to just do as you please. There's that Liberty Bell, by the way, before I forget it. There's Mrs. V coming through. All of these figures are based on 2 simple principles. A bell shape for the hip, an egg shape for the torso, for the thoracic cage, and the torso is just one big tube that comes down to those hips. From those 2 shapes, I can draw anything. And Stan does his robo beam. That's another method. There's many methods, and every one of them are valid. Here's what I'm working with here. You saw that a second ago, and I'm going in here, just drawing from imagination to show you how I get those shapes. And if you draw this 20 times, that's the power of osmosis, you'll soon have this in your subconscious art engine. These little notches I'm making here are a hand length. They look longer. Try it. Put your hand on your rib cage and feel the bottom rib. It's a hand length. So I got it there, and I'm feeling it right away. Boing, there's my 10th rib, and this is the sternum end. And if I do that, there's another hand. So they're hand lengths, as are the clavicles. They're hand lengths, and then you got to dip in between and another hand length. So once you learn to see those hand lengths, it's very easy to draw the idea of that little skydiver. If we can go back to the drawing there, Stephen, I'll come back to it. I have the power to come back. It's great. Now look at those clavicles. They're so important. The more of them you draw, you can see the little skydiver. You can see his head there. You can see his crutch and his foot. And I use the foot to go around the rib cage. See his legs, hand length, hand length, hand length. But only from the front. This hand length is going to be shorter because it's going in a 3/4 view. How do I know that? Because the center line, the sternum, has more volume on this side than it has on that side. So I've already decided that this rib cage is in a 3/4 view, and so this hand length has to diminish. That's all there is to it. On this view here, oh, you don't have my pointer. So on the drawing on the far left there, the clavicles would be pretty much looking at us, so they'd be a hand length equally, because the central line is pretty much central. So that central line, which is Mrs. V, the line all the way down from that little notch between the clavicles, there, let's put it in again. This line coming down is what I call Mrs. V. There it is there. And I'll go up to the top, and Mr. T is the clavicles. It's a little T shape. I come down below that egg, and the navel fits in. There's a little pair of underpants there for you to show that what we saw as a belt now is a pair of captain underpants. And also you can see the distance on one side of those has more range than the other side because it's a 3/4 view. Now, those hips can twist counterpoise to that top part. So we will go through that as well. You need 100 drawings to understand all of it. And that's what we do. So this drawing will take, 4 minutes or something? Because I've drawn it 100 times and enjoyed all of those 100 times I did it. Because it's therapy. It's a really beautiful thing. It's like singing a song. And then we go there with the pectoralis lines to get the arms lifted up because they lift with it. Now, that's a ton of information, but it's only because this is a demo. You have 14 hours to digest that if you take the course. And you've got 6,000 hours to rewind it and watch it again and draw it again. There's a million little bits of information here that I can only touch on because it's a quick demo and a quick conversation.
Mhm.
Are there any other questions, Stephen?
We have so many. The first
Oh,
and most important thing I want to bring up, Patrick,
yeah,
is that right now we started drawing the female figure.
yeah.
For anyone who's in the chat right now that might not be so confident on drawing the female figure, I have good news for you. Patrick Jones has a course for that. It's the thing that's brought us here today. Patrick Jones's brand new course with the name
Drawing the epic fantasy female figure from imagination.
There you go. It is currently on pre-sale right now for 20% off of the full price. So right now it's the lowest price that you will ever be able to get that course for. It'll bridge some of the courses that that Patrick has put up before, some of his books, other things that everyone's been asking him to teach that weren't quite there in those other big lessons that he had before. You can get it. It's in the description. It's this text on screen right now. It's in the chat. Everyone can get it for so cheap right now, and you should do it.
Oh boy.
But now to the questions about that course, Patrick. I think the person's name was Deli. They asked,
Okay.
It's called Drawing from Imagination. Does that mean that it involves problems and solutions and methods for drawing from imagination outside of reference and advice on the imagination process?
I am so glad that question come up. Now, drawing from imagination. Of course, we think drawing from imagination. We just made it up. This also encompasses the idea that if you're drawing from reference, that you're using your imagination to veer off the reference. So you can use reference and say, I am not going to copy that reference. I'm going to draw through this reference and change it to be better reference. So when I see like a poor model in life draw, let's say it's someone, they're a backpacker, they're just traveling through town and they're just awful, right? I can see in their poses that there's a possibility of a better pose, and I'll make it so. I'll change the hip, I'll change the shoulders, I'll change anything because I have Mrs. V and Mr. T to veer off that idea, and that's what I'll do. Like for this pose here, I'll just rewind. This is one of those ideas, once again, we've got a fuller figure. So let's say you're just drawing the same figure all the time, one of those long, perfect Andrew Loomis Hollywood stars. And then you get someone that's 5'2", and they're on the plump side. You go, well, this is a great opportunity to draw lots of gesture because that's what happens. It becomes more gestural. Mm-hmm. But also what's happening here now is this figure between the 10th rib and that iliac crest is the bendy part. So this figure is pushing backwards in space and then backwards again at the hips, or not so much, but backwards in space at the top. And so they're throwing their head back. So all those hand distances have now been diminished. They've all been in perspective. But also the stretch now between the rib cage and the iliac crest is longer. So we have a more squat egg and a longer torso down to the lovely bell shape of the hip structure. Now we've got legs coming at us. What are we going to do here? Keep it simple. Let's encompass the whole knee structure with one big elongated egg, because I know once I have that egg, I can put all the complication I need in there. The patella, the patellar ligament, tibial nose, anything you want to put in there is doable because we have worked from big shapes and put small shapes inside those big shapes, and then smaller shapes inside those smaller shapes until there is no such thing as complex anymore. Everything was simple. There's that ovoid shape. Now it's going back in space. And so it's becoming less ovoid and more box-like. Here comes that nose. From the question way back, look how I'm using the broad of my pencil to take away the fear of complicated structure. I've just blocked in where I know that nose is going to be, because as we lift our head up, that nose is coming up with us. Head up, ears down, head down, ears up. So we're no longer reliant on the idea that the ears and the nose are the same and always the same, only from the front. The second I do that, that's all gone. So I've seen so many times where people have drawn the idea that the ears and the nose link, and then they throw the head up and the ears are up too high because they haven't been done. So that you can see that the ears are down. And this one's drawn from imagination. So I know all that stuff. And you can draw with more fluidity too from imagination because you're not hindered by the reference. The reference is a burden. The reference is a burden. There's no doubt about it.
There was, I don't know, since you're talking about this, there was one question just now from Raul. They're saying, oh, sorry, not from Raul. This was from Pinnacle. They said there seems to be people who have challenges drawing from imagination. Do you think that there is such a thing as over-reliance on reference?
Always. Everyone's over-reliant on reference. The second you're staring at that reference trying to replicate it, you've lost the plot. So the reference, unless it's an art director and they've said, this is for a book jacket, then you go on, you may as well just go and trace it, because that's really what you're spending all those hours doing. And that's why professional artists just trace. They just go on, I'll trace it. But you can always tell. I was talking to Jeff Watts the other day, and also Joshua Jacobo from New Masters. I was talking to him on a podcast, and he said, you can always tell. And you can always tell. You can always tell when someone has just traced reference. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you can draw from imagination and you have that reference, you can change that reference on the fly. So let's say I'm under a light box and I'm going under an artoscope, even worse. If I have reference there and I'm tracing it because the deadline is noon, high noon, I am already changing that reference as I draw on the trace already, because I can already see the distortion. So you can always tell, because you can always tell the photo eye. So when someone's traced something slavishly, all the photo distortion's on show. So it becomes this dull, inferior copy. And that's horrific. It should never be inferior to the photograph. It should be superior to the photograph. So by doing this many, many times, the reference becomes what it should be, which is the reference. Mm-hmm. Now, let's say you do trace it perfectly. You still have to come in and draw it again with some fluidity. Otherwise, you just got this dull thing. So do that if you want. There's no rules. But come in again with another trace on top. Discard the reference, do this course, and start drawing like I'm doing here. All these wonderful moments that I'm drawing here are based on drawing this many times. There's the Magnus adductor. So as I drew that thigh, it began just as a big curved line. But at the very top of that thigh, there was a quick curve. That's the Magnus adductor. And it pulls right into Mrs. V. You can see it there. And becomes another muscle. I've drawn that many times. That little notch that you saw in the center there was the navel pushing out for the lower abs. Now it's done the reverse here. It's going up because I'm drawing upside down. Good God, that's wizardry. You can draw upside down. Heart be still. Yes, you can. After a while, look, there's the legs pinching in where the belt would be. Right there, pinching in. Drawn it many times. There's the little hollow going in there for the great trochanter pushing out, upside down. There's Mrs. V being more finessed. There is the adductor longus pushing out from Mrs. V. There's the Magnus getting a little bit more love, right? There's the sartorius. Now, you might all be going, I'm asleep now, Patrick. Wake me up when the anatomy stops. But I will say it over and over. And as you draw, you'll go sartorius, a long head. You'll do all that stuff. The Magnus adductor. In fact, rhyme is a good way to remember things. If you draw, if you sing along, the leg bone's connected to the thigh bone, all that stuff. So you can see that even though I've indicated the little underpants there, just over to the far top, you can see a peak. And you might go, hold on, is that the peak? No, the peak continues its way around. So I'll go back to that again just to show you one of those little moments of minutia. So you can see here I'm putting in the iliac crests. There's the little underpants. Now remember, they're also squat because they're in a perspective. So they're not as long as they used to be. They're going in toward the body, and so they're starting to lose their distance that you see from the front. So there's the two notches. You can see them very clearly there. And that's the landmark. But I have gone above that top notch now, and I'm going to speed across. So here, there it is there. And I'm going to peak that. The iliac crest is below that. But that's still a peak because the crest of the hip is not just a point. It continues all the way around. Good Lord. I didn't even know that was a question to ask. And there it is. Mystery solved about what happened to the crest of the hip. Well, it continues. It continues all the way around. It's a bone. It's not just a peak. Little things like that. This is when it becomes beautiful. When you start to emphasize where is the broad of the pencil going to go? It's going to go on a thick shape right there. How do you find style? It finds itself if you start thinking about how beautiful the weight is. Put a thick line on there. How beautiful is the kneecap? Put a straight on it to show everyone it's a bone. Where do you put straights? Let's put them on bones. There's a beginning of style. Where do we put the broads? Where's gravity? What's the weight of things? Put it there. Let's just say you just want to emphasize something because you like it. Make it darker. And that's it. And now you're conducting a symphony of line and tone. Look here, look there, all the
There,
time.
Patrick, as one question here. So there's a couple different reasons that a person might use different line weights
Yep.
on a piece just in general. Sometimes for emphasis, sometimes just purely stylistically. Other times it can be something that someone will do to indicate just like shadow, like the edge that's furthest away from the light.
Yeah.
Someone had asked in here, I think this was Gannon Beck themselves. Do you cover making up lighting in the course?
Yes, I do. I leave. You have to earn your dessert. My friend, when I go back to Ireland, he says, earn your lunch. And we'd go on a hike. And he was in great shape, but he wasn't a bodybuilder or anything. He's just in great shape. And I thought, that's brilliant. Earn your lunch. So he never had his lunch unless he went somewhere for a run or a hike or something like that. And he enjoyed it. He never thought of himself as a person that exercises. He just enjoyed going into nature. And he knew that the hunger from that would make the lunch even more delicious. And he was right. And we sat at the seaside and had fish and chips. And it was the most beautiful fish and chips I've ever had. So that's what this is like. So we draw lots and lots of this. You can see that these are, 10 minutes or something.
Mhm.
And I'll stop at the render. And then on the 13th hour, ding, should have been the 12th, shouldn't it? Ding, I will take you into render. And so the last portion of this course is an hour and a half long, where every other portion, it's called them potions. Every other potion is an hour. The last one's an hour and a half. So you can earn your dessert. You can earn, what do they say in America? Do they say dessert for like a pudding or a pie? What do you call that?
I mean, this one's hard because
Is it?
pudding it's also a different thing for people elsewhere than pudding here. Pudding here, like from the company Jello, like chocolate pudding. That's
Yeah.
the only thing that we call pudding. Is that what you
All
mean?
right. Yes, it's earn your pudding. Let's say earn
Okay.
your pudding. So you can't just eat pudding. It'll make you sick. You got to have something substantial first. So this is the substance. This is the way that you're going to be able to enjoy that pudding without frustration. And it's that little wins thing. So look at this. And sometimes, you can draw a pose multiple times. And each time you draw the pose, you draw it a little bit differently because there's also something else. There is the persistence of vision. If you've drawn something once and you draw it, I recommend this. You're in the life draw class. The model's posed. You've drawn it from life. You're not experienced enough yet to remake stuff up. She or he has stepped off the podium. Draw it again. Draw it again no matter what calamity comes on your page. The persistence of vision of what you've just done is still in there. And this is long-term persistence of vision. I've drawn, look at that little face just coming out of nowhere.
Yeah, just
Stop
the
drawing.
tiniest indications become a whole face.
Tiniest little thing. And that's from drawing lots of those little faces over and over. Now, if I did one big rendered face and did another big rendered face, I've already lost the persistence of vision because I've forgotten how the face started. But if I draw lots of little faces like that, that persistence is there and I can render that easily.
Mm-hmm.
So the render is most of the time you're going to spend, and it's all the time you need to forget what you've done. And so if we do lots of little wins like this, it's getting stronger and stronger and stronger in your mindset that these are simple shapes, and then you can render to the end of the day. So I say, save it to the end of the day. And so I save it to the end of the course. So the end of this course, big render, and we'll see a bit of it. And it's a foreshortened pose. And I use reference for it. So this is drawing from imagination. Yeah. Just so we don't have, the peanut gallery rise up and go, I found that pose. Yes, it is a wonderful pose. And a shout out to Obscura. I bought a
Mm.
professional license of them, and they have a wonderful model, and Proko sells that too. And they have a wonderful model in there. And I hesitated to show the reference in the course or to add it as part of the course because then you're losing the idea of what this is about. So even though I had that reference, I barely looked at it
Yeah.
because I knew I didn't want a photographic representation. I didn't
This is
want
a
that at all.
this is a common one that comes up. So we actually
Yeah,
did a video with Elisa Ivanova a little while
she's
ago.
brilliant. She's
Yeah,
fantastic.
fantastic, incredible artist who we're doing another course with pretty soon here. We're in the middle of
Yeah,
editing that one. It's turned out pretty well. But the way that she uses reference, every time that we post something to YouTube, which is a little bit broader of an audience than someone just on Proko or in someone's course in particular,
yeah,
and she'll get this thing that will come up pretty much only in YouTube comments where someone has this tiny little gripe where they say, her piece looks nothing like the reference. But the thing that they're saying with that one is that it looks different than the reference, but they're also not taking into account just how different it looks from the reference, and it was done with intention. Where a
yeah.
reference is something that you start from and you use it for inspiration, for the lighting, a little bit of a pose or something, and then you diverge from entirely with the imagination that you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, if Steve Houston says it, I'll paraphrase. But if it looks like the reference, you haven't done your job.
Fair?
You know, you just go get the reference then. So, and I've heard that too. I mean, I've heard it in the comments all the time. It's usually the bottom comments. Oh, it doesn't look like the reference. Yeah, that's
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 the
not
point.
the point. That's not the point at all. The
Yeah.
point is you change it so that it looks like you, not the
Mhm.
reference. And so this little drawing I'm doing here, it feels like me. And that's the way it should do. And one of the greatest compliments I can get is that looks like a Patrick Jones. Or you can always tell a Patrick Jones. Job done.
I would
Brilliant.
also be flattered if someone said that one of my pieces looked like a Patrick Jones drawing. I'll take that compliment also.
Like the compliments are brilliant, no matter where they come from. That looks like a Frazetta. Thank you very much. I mean, you can't get a better compliment than that. But if you look closely, it's not. And it's the way of all these artists. If you look at a Boris Vallejo, people say, "Oh, it's just a clone of Frazetta." Put them next to each other.
They're very different.
Nothing like each other.
Yeah.
Nothing at all. So it is possibly you haven't drawn enough yet to see the difference. And once you start seeing the difference, you want to make more of a difference.
Yeah.
I mean, look at this. Look at those little eyelids going in there. Did you see that? They were building on top of something that was already there, and it's a big improvement. It became a big improvement because I am holistically looking over this entire artwork and seeing fresh again that face. If you're copying reference, you don't see anything fresh. You're just looking at the same thing and repeating it over here. The fact that I can draw holistically like this means that it's always fresh. And so you might go, how can you ever draw something as complex as this from imagination? After a while, magic as it seems, you can. Because you've already seen me talk about the magnus adductor, the adductor longus. Let's go back and have a look at that. Easily put in there as lines. So it's always amazed me that if you learn a little bit of anatomy, it doesn't have to be tons. If you learn a little bit of anatomy and repeat that little bit of anatomy over and over, it no longer is anything other than a beautiful idea. Now look at this. Oh, yeah, I can't show it. But basically the thigh on the left side here of the screen is just a tube at the minute, as it should be. I'm going to go into that tube and I'm going to put in a couple of little lines that represent muscle. Let's see, am I going to do it here? So I'm finding the iliac crest here, by the way, in perspective. There's the great trochanter just went in. So goes in, pushes back out for the outside of the thigh. There's the kneecap. There's the patella coming through here. And there we have here it is, long head of the adductor longus and the magnus adductor. That's one line right there, okay? And down at the bottom we had the vastus medialis as a curve after the patella. Once again, wake everyone up, Stephen. I will just say it as I go along, and before you know it, you're drawing it and saying it yourself. And that is the power of osmosis.
It just becomes part of it. Like there's no part where someone really sits down while they're drawing something that doesn't have like the academic side of it, like just a car or a motorcycle. I'm not sitting there thinking this like the hyper specific parts of like the headlight or like the rear view mirror. I'm just going rear view mirror,
Yeah.
And it's just a part of one part of the section of
Yeah.
the actual vehicle.
And you
There was
remember when you, yeah. And you, sorry, go ahead, Stephen.
oh no, continue.
And you remember when you were learning to draw, your hands were stuck to that steering wheel. You needed a clamp to get them off. You were so terrified, right? So they're glued to that. And then after a while, you're turning the steering wheel like that, or maybe
Yeah,
even from the
and
inside like
you're
this.
like
You
just
know what I mean?
barely touching the steering wheel
Yeah,
with like
yeah.
one finger. It
Coffee.
happens.
Yeah, and that's the way it is. I mean, look at this little hand going in here. It's just a bunch of sticks, and then you break them in half, and then the top half has got a straight to it. The bottom half has a curve to it.
That's interesting.
Halfway. Yeah, a little thumb. Look how quick it goes in, and now you got a hand, and it just starts with a mitt. It starts with a little mitten, and then you go. So top of the fingers straightish, bottom curved. So the bottom has the pads, has to. We're just like little lizards. We need something to suction onto. The top, that's for punching the villains if they're trying to stop you from sticking to something. And you've drawn a little hand, and there's a bit of skin that attaches to the finger, and off you go. You're linking the fingers. So very simple to draw a little hand like that, and that can be a male hand by just bunching up the knuckles.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll see me draw. Oh, that's something. Loads of hands in this because
Mm-hmm.
I often draw quick sketches. There's not enough time for the hand because it takes as long to draw a hand as it does to draw an entire figure. In this course, I will draw a whole hour of hands and then punctuate in between drawings with other hands. So I'm going to draw lots of hands and draw hands that close, how they turn. I'm going to do everything that you can do to get into this course and have never fear anything, even the dreaded hand. You'll see how to do it. But in quick poses like this, there's a lot of information here, how to get a hand in quickly and then move on to the figure again.
Yeah.
Are there any more questions, Stephen?
So many. There was one that I was looking at earlier. This is from Cody Things.
Mm-hmm.
Their question was, do you have any tips for creating interesting female faces while maintaining an aesthetic of youth and conventional beauty?
It is all in the wizardry course and in here too. Okay. Now, what you can do is basically plump it. So the more you show cheekbones, the more you've aged the character right away. The more you curve the jawline here, you've once again softened that from because you're only using lines here. So you can change the age of someone 10 years with a line. So more softness. There's more subcutaneous layer on a young woman as there is in an older woman. So if you look, Angelina Jolie, I often refer to, because she has no wrinkles on her face magically, but there's nothing she can do about those cheekbones showing themselves more and more with age. There's nothing can be done with that because the subcutaneous layer is thinner now. So if you look back, just get two pictures of Angelina Jolie, one when she was 20, one when she's not today, and notice that the lips are smaller. She had huge lips. The lips are smaller because they recede, so you can plump the lips up. Once again, not everyone has plump lips to begin with, but there's one indicator that we all get thinner lips. It was really cruel. I saw a bunch of older actors, and they used to be these young guns, and they were all in a picture together, and now they're in their 50s, and somebody wrote, quite cruelly, not a lip between them. It was like the Muppets. It was exactly like they said. It was like the Muppets. It was just a line like that. We're in their youth. If you think of John Travolta, big giant Mick Jagger lips. So we do tend to get bonier, even if there's no wrinkles. So that's how you do it. You reduce the cheekbone or broaden the line. You can see I put a big broad line in there on that cheek. That's a young woman because the line isn't so defined. But it has still the cheekbone in there. It still has that. If you take it out altogether, that's stylistic. But sometimes we need it. If we're going to draw with any tone at all, it's still needed in there. So yeah, it was a great question. And any other questions, if you like. And if anyone can stop me at any time, if there's something in the demo that they want to ask, I'll take the questions.
So we've got some more here. This was one that was about learning, and I think kind of plays into the idea of dexterity and training your hand. Strap in. They set it across two questions. So Carlos Rue asked, how would you tackle learning lines, like new lines to add to your muscle memory? For example, lines that legendary animators use but don't come easily for them. Would you
Yeah.
suggest tracing for learning new lines to combine observation from artist
Mm.
demos and drawings?
Oh, you've opened up a Pandora's box there. And I remember Marshall Vandroff. He was asked about his favorite books. And somebody says, but what about this book? One of the most popular books of all time. And he bit his tongue because nobody wants to diss a living artist. And I
Was
don't
this
want to
the
either.
drawing on the right side of the brain?
Stephen, now you stop that. You stop that now. But there are some books that say tracing photos will help you draw to a small degree. But to say that that's the answer is a disastrous, an absolutely disastrous idea. I would say you'll learn more from just that little warm up I did earlier at the very start, from those 3 minutes of me turning the pencil into its broad, down to its thin, do big lines, thin lines, small lines, feel the weight of the pencil. See if you can do the broadest line to the thinnest line. See if you can do that in one stroke and practice that over and over. Just drop the pencil down to its broad, slowly lift it up until it's on its point. That will teach you more than an entire book on tracing to learn line. To be honest, look, I'm going to have to say it. No.
Yeah, I would agree.
Tracing photographs will not help you with your line weight at all.
The alternative thing that might give them what they're looking for with a similar exercise might be something like doing a master study to practice and try to mimic the line quality that you see from other people. So if you go to actually do that, and while you're trying to decode the thing that they did and recreate their piece, not necessarily one for one, but with the intention of, let's say, studying line weight, you'll see where they placed those lines and why. So if you were following with Patrick's work, like he was describing earlier, you can see in this drawing here, around the knee area of the thigh that he now so conveniently covered up. When he goes into the knee, he wants to show this harder edge, where for the rest of the leg, there's other parts where the line feathers out. It's a thicker thing with less actual, like it's a lighter value, but where he wants to communicate a hard edge, a hard stop between two things, he'll have something that's a sharper line. As you go try to recreate that drawing, you'll learn some of the why, or at the very least, what that means to you. And so you yourself will gain that knowledge and internalize it way better than you ever would by just sitting down and trying to trace something in some book.
Yep. Thanks, Stephen. That was very nicely put. And that's what this course is about. This course is about, once again, the minutia. And a lot of this course is about the power of memory. Because let's say you're getting older and your memory's not as great as it was. There's different parts of the brain. And the cerebellum is where the motor memory is. Motor memory is totally different from your long-term and short-term memory. So you could learn to draw just by repeating something over and over. And I go into great depth talking about an actual subject, Henry Mollison, who had his short-term memory taken out, and he could still draw, even though he couldn't remember how he learned to draw, because the motor memory is totally different. So you've got the power of osmosis here, which is, as I draw those thicker shapes, let's just go back into this little bit here to answer that question a little bit more succinctly. Notice the fingers, the bones are close to the surface. Give us a thin line for that, please. The breast is a heavy object. Let's get a thicker line for underneath the breast. Look at the tricep over on the top right of the figure, this little cute little figure here that I'm drawing. Look how it started. Now, in this course, I would say, let's say you are an absolute beginner. Do the wizardry course first, or you can jump in here and do this and draw that to that position there 10 times. Don't try and finish it to the end. Draw that 10 times. And then your motor memory will have that. Even if you're not grasping the insights, your motor memory will have that. But you'll have both. You'll have the insights as well. Why did I do this? Why did I do that? I never shut up. You know me. I talk all the way through. And so the best of knowledge is often lost when the artist is huffing and puffing because they don't have the capacity to talk as they're doing their best work. So their best work's unsaid. And so, what's he thinking? That was a great line. Why? Well, I explain it all. I mean, there's a ton of anatomy going on in here. And this is what's great about learning how to draw for animation. I teach how to draw for an animation in maybe I'll do that course. When I walk onto the campus down the road here, I have an anatomy drawing for animation.
Mm.
And I take anatomy and make it simple so they can understand how to put less in to give the illusion of life. And you can see there's a ton of anatomy going in. There's the iliac crest just went in, and the rectus femoris after that. So we can just say that's a hip crest and a thigh that peaks. And the reason for it peaking is there's two muscles under there. I'll say that a million times. And there's a ton of my courses already up there. You know, you've got my books up in Proko as well, the Anatomy of Style Revised, all that stuff. Have them by your side. Have them in your satchel. They're made for that size to fit into a satchel. Take them to your life draw class. Flip through them. The study guide is in there as well. I think you have that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you have. I'm sure you have. And that's a distilled version of it. So basically all those study sheets that I do are all in one book. And you can take that at the class with you and reference through it on the break if you like, or just have it open at a page. But look at that 11th and 10th and 11th rib in there. We always hear about the 10th, but look at that beautiful profile of the rib cage. They're based on another two ribs. There's a million things. There goes that tricep, and it's a very thin line. I have pushed my knuckles up onto the surface to get almost a detail hand, but not quite, because I still have the anchor of my elbow up to my shoulder to give me a detail hand with gesture. See that? Impossible if you're balancing on a tightrope of a pen grip to sign your name. So all of those little things. A quick tip would be, well, what if I want the detail hand in a gestural grip? You may not notice it, but as I go through this, if I'm doing detail, my thumb and finger are closer to the tip of that pencil to get detail, still with a gestural grip. And it is incredibly solid. You might think it can never be as solid as that. To me, that's always wonky. That is only for eyelashes, nothing else. I can't imagine. It's only when I get to the face that I have that detail hand, unless it's a very small something or other somewhere else. But the main thing is big shapes to small shapes as you go through. And in this course, I'll talk about the power of memory, how to remember easier. There's lots of little mnemonics and mnemonic ways to draw anything with confidence and ease. I mean, it's honestly, it's hard to say it without being a bragger, because that's what it sounds like. But honestly, it becomes so easy and joyful after a while that you sometimes catch yourself and go, this is too easy. That's an Australian term, by the way. Too easy, mate. Too easy, mate.
Too easy, mate.
It's too easy, mate. That's what it becomes after a while. And that's the nirvana. The nirvana is, it's too easy. Give me another challenge, you know? Give me two figures fighting each other. Or as my nephew said when I finally got around to talking to him, the nephew, when I went to Ireland, can you draw for Conan? He was only a kid. Can you draw for Conan? What's the, I haven't got time at the minute. I've got all this friends to see. And then I finally sat down with him. I said, what do you want? Daffy Duck, Donald Duck? He says, a dragon fighting a horse. Now, we talked about that before, I think, Stephen. Sure, let's do a dragon fighting a horse.
Yeah.
And now we've got something new to do, because this is too easy, right? And so what I want to do is felicitate that, or expedite your journey that took me 30 years into a smaller, more manageable chunk of your time.
Yeah.
And now you've got all of this, but you still have to draw. You have to draw lots and lots. Draw along with me. Rewind it. Do it again. It says it right at the very start on the titles. Watch, draw, and redraw. Now, I'm a very visual learner. I like to watch an artist draw and just watch them and listen to them. And then I'll draw, I'll rewind it, draw along, and watch and listen and draw. So you could be any kind of learner. There's different ways to learn. And so you can learn any way you like, but there's nothing on this earth that is closer to being in a studio with a professional than recorded content up close like this with the insights being spoken the entire time and the chance to rewind. Because even in a live class, that's why those study sheets were so popular. Even in a live class, you're going, wow, wow, wow. You get home and what can you retain? 5 things.
Yeah.
But they're 5 brilliant things. Go back to the class and get another 5. Build on it. It's all in here. It's just rewind and build on over and over. The one thing
I will say is really nice is that, you know, for some of those live sessions, the live lessons that people do, you wish you could go back and do that replay that you mentioned.
Yeah.
But if it's a video course, like Patrick Jones's brand new course, you don't have to think that. You can just replay The Power of Osmosis, Epic Female Figure Drawing from Imagination, the brand new course from Patrick Jones that is currently 20% off on Proko.com. There's a link in the description right here on screen. You guys should go check it out. It's a really good one. That's what brings us here today. If you guys like anything that you're seeing here and you want to be able to learn to do that, and you want to be able to do that easily like you see Patrick doing, it's something that he walks people through in that course. There have been some things that he's talked about in other courses that weren't necessarily covered in full, that he felt like spending some time on. There was a question in the chat that was asking, how should I balance learning anatomy and drawing from imagination? You can do both at the same time because that's the way that Patrick teaches.
Yeah.
There is one other thing in there that I do want to mention, guys. Not everyone can buy a course. Economic times are tough. You don't have to buy a course because the thing that you really need to know is wisdom. And Patrick Jones has wisdom for you on the Art Agents podcast that has its own channel here on YouTube that I've just dropped in the description. Yeah. He's mentioned a couple times that he recently got to talk to Jeff Watts and a few other fantastic artists. You're going to draw. You need something to play in the background, and it might as well also be about art. I recommend you guys go subscribe to that and enjoy that as part of your guys' learning practice. Patrick, I've talked so much just now. I want to hand this back to you.
Well, I want to add to that because I have, for the first time, I do a mentorship. And it's basically, I cap it to 10 students. And we meet once a week for 3.5 hours or so. And then we record the Q&A. And I draw over all that stuff. So I have a mentorship going. And for the first time ever, it's always been 4 p.m. in PST time. But for the first time ever, I've done a European time as well. I'm going to do 2 sessions. So if anyone wants to join me, it's going to start on the 16th. And you can draw with me over the whole month of May. So on the 16th, I'll put up the first lessons, and then you'll join me. Yeah, it's at my web store.
What is that, Patrick?
It's the Anatomy of Style online course.
And what's the URL for that?
The URL, well, pjartworks.com.
Okay,
will take you there. The URL for the actual page would be quite long.
Yeah,
but I can feed it to you. I could send it to you.
No, it's okay. PJ Artworks is good.
Yeah, pjartworks.com. And that's coming up pretty soon. So for the first time, because I always felt for the students that were in Europe, and they would come in and they were such warriors. They would come in at 1 a.m. in the morning and leave at 5 a.m. And it was incredible. And so for them, I wanted to really push the boat out and say, for the first time ever, I'm going to do the European zone. I've already got some students in there. It's kept to 10. It's first come, first serve. And once those 10 are used up, then that's it. The class is closed. So that's happening quite soon. I'm really looking forward to drawing with everyone. Of course, America, I love my American students. And that still runs. That's still going to be 4 p.m. PST time. But for the first time, anyway, I wanted to say that because I would have forgotten it. That's starting, practically in 8 days or something. The first lessons are uploaded, the class lessons. And then on 4th of May, I think it is, we start drawing together. I'll look at your drawings, draw over them, that kind of thing.
Nice.
So there you go.
Heck
Mr.
Yeah.
Spook. But in the meantime, we have this. We have this course right now. Look at how fleshy this figure has become. Do you see that? You don't need much render to show a fleshy figure. This is the power of the weight of the pencil and where to put the broad, where to put the thin, and where to leave an air gap. Look at the little air gaps between lines here so that you don't end up with what looks like a coloring in book. I was always amazed when I would copy artists like Jeff Jones and stuff that they would stop the line before, like take the shoulder line. One has joined at the face up there, but look at the other one on the other side, how the line doesn't touch the ear. There's too much stuff going on in there. It would be too much. And so I've left a little break in the line. That's a stylistic choice. The fact that there's more detail in one area focuses your eye on that area. And so you can compose these drawings for everyone to enjoy. I mean, it's just a beautiful oasis of cam and then detail and then cam again. And for me, that's the joy of art. And you can see here that if you went a little bit heavy to begin with, you just take a tissue and push it back, and now it looks like a thinner line that was more confident. So that stuff as well. You might go, do I have to get it first time? Bring your tissue in, bring your finger in, use anything. These are the simplest of tools that will give you a ton of render. I mean, look
Mhm.
how quickly render is done, really. If you put the lines and the broad shapes down well, you only have to touch the edges to get render. So to start a drawing with render, to me, is just, it's ridiculous. I mean, do it. You can do anything you want. But to me, you are already in the weeds, and you are going to get more confused if you start with render. It should be your dessert. That's what I think.
Mhm.
Now, I sound very authoritarian there. This is just from experience. You will enjoy the drawing better if everything is a joy. And the render your heart out. You'll see me do it. And like I say, that will have a reference to it, but I'm only glancing at the reference. If I was to
Yeah,
copy that reference, it would look like the reference. And there, I have not done my job.
absolutely.
Sorry, that
The
was a big get off my soapbox.
No,
Soapbox.
no,
Sit back
please,
down.
I spieled about a course for ages. Uh, William Badgek in the chat was asking, "Are there prerequisites for this course? I'm not a beginner, but I have not done much drawing from imagination."
I would say get the fantasy wizardry course, which is on Proko right now. I would say that would be your beginning. That would be the start. But this is a beginning too. I mean, the if you are really a beginner, then I would say go get my books and start the apprentice to wizard course, and just keep rewinding those first steps. And then this would be the link between that and fantasy female figures, which is not mostly render, but a lot of render. And bit by bit, I'll take the training wheels off and show less cogs. And then what you'll do is you'll end up rendering the figure with great confidence.
Mm.
Like I say, within this one course here, you can do all of that, but it is at an expedited rate because we're already assuming that you've done the wizardry course. Now, let's say that you already are quite advanced. This would be a course you can just pick up right now, as is the fantasy female figure drawing course. You could just pick that up right now. But look at the beauty of pencil. Even now, because I just drew this yesterday, so I'm still a little bewildered about what I did because I drew so many drawings. But at the risk of being egotistical, I'm loving looking at these lines. And I remember an artist once said, someone says, how do you know when a drawing's finished? And she said, when it takes your breath away.
Mm.
So there's something magical in the fact that it didn't exist and now it exists and you love it. If that's ego, I don't know. But I will say it's let's say, a tribute to all the artists that have inspired me. Let's say it's not ego, it's that I am now able to do these lines. And you can too. So your tribute to me would be to do this and then end up in this position where you're teaching someone else and you say, this is in tribute to those artists. So it's a lineage. Let's take that lineage. Let's have, and a lot of what I talk about in here is about community as well. And
Mm.
Proko has done a wonderful job in creating a community of artists that did not
Aw.
exist. Did not exist. All we had before was the studio, and I was so lucky to have that studio to walk into. And it's all broken up now. So it's very unusual, unless you get a job in Pixar or something like that, that you're going to see that studio system again. Because you're mostly going to be working from home.
Mhm.
Even when I was working in the movies down at Warner Brothers here, which I could have gone to every day and worked, but that was an hour and a half there, and traffic too. 4 hours of my day back and forth. And I just said to the producer, I'll do this from home.
Yeah.
And they agreed because I had basically a presence that said, yes, of course you can. Whereas when you're just starting, you gotta go in, and you should go in. You should go in and enjoy it. So I did that, and that's mostly what people are doing now. They're working from home, studio
Mhm.
system. Pretty much you're in your own. But here you don't have to be.
Yeah.
You've got me. Never stops talking. You're seeing a silent demo here. But I will be less as well. I'll be more focused too. You know how we're bouncing all over the place here, Stephen. I'm more focused here because it's a silent room. And so I'm just very much in the moment when I talk and very much in the moment when I draw. Look how beautiful, if I may say, that little drawing from imagination is. I could not have done that. I give a shout out to the new masters too. That I learned a lot from Steve Houston and Glenn Vilppu and all those great guys. And now I'm joining that lineage. I've put some stuff up there as well. That's another question as well, Stephen.
Mhm.
Is this stuff the same as the new masters? It's not. This stuff is separate from the new masters. The new masters has their own unique course. This is a unique course. So you're not there's no duplicate here with the
Yeah.
new masters. If you want the new masters, you join that. If you want this, it's on Proko. Just to answer that question, it wasn't asked because I know it's asked a lot later, and that'll put that question to bed. That
That's
beautiful
fair.
little face. As we were
Yeah.
talking, who did that? Who did that while we were talking? Look at that. Yeah,
Some guy. Some guy.
some fella.
While he was drawing, he kept saying clangers.
That's right. He's clanging. I think he put his foot in the bucket or something. Yeah, he's just clanging about. But yeah, look at the beauty of it. You know, I know what the scapula is. It's just another hand length, again, but a hard edge on it. So, you know, we might say scapula. I remember a time when I'd never heard scapula before because all I knew was wing bones. You can call them that. You know, they're your wing bones. Look at that ulnaris there, extensor, just coming in there to come down to the ulna bone. It's just a line.
There are two questions here that I think might be handy ones to answer.
Yes, go ahead. I'll answer mostly questions now.
So Christina in the chat asked, if you're a beginner, which course would you recommend starting with? Which of your Patrick Jones courses would you recommend?
Oh, Patrick Jones courses.
Patrick Jones courses.
There's so many. I think the Anatomy of Style online course. I have also, I'll tell you what I used to do. I used to work with CGMA, and CGMA were wonderful. But at the end of the day, I was repeating a simple course over and over, and it was no longer really challenging me. And so what I did is I had the rights to it anyway, and I put it up on my web store. And it was the Anatomy of Style. I call it Anatomy of Style 1, because it was the first time I ever recorded content for another place to put it on the platform before, you know, I had the privilege to know Proko. I did it then. Now, that course is of its time. I saw Marshall promoting something and saying it was of its time. Technology has moved so fast.
Yeah.
So when I look at that course now, it's perfectly easy to read. You know, you can see it. At the time, I thought it was brilliant. But now when you look at this course is in 4K, it has a look of vintage to it. But the knowledge in it is still perfect. So I would say, yes, on my web store, once again, we have that course, the Anatomy of Style 1. It's at an incredible discount, considering that it has a vintage, you know, the mic's not as great as this mic. Totally legible. You can hear, you can see. It's a really good course. And I love doing it. So that one. And a lot of people have taken that course and then ended up in the Anatomy of Style online course, which is a more advanced version of that, even though you can take it as a beginner. So yes, that. But once again, back to the books that are on there and the wizardry course. That's 4K. Everything from this point now can it ever be bettered? I mean, I've looked at 8K. We can't see in 8K. Our eyes can't see 8K. So I'm not sure how we can go any higher. So at 4K, I mean, I'm zooming in here. You can't do that. You know, imagine if this is better again. Imagine if you were in my studio and you wanted to see up that close. Your chin would be on my chest with your head over my shoulder like that. You'd be closer to the drawing than me. That's new. That's totally new. So there you go. You can't do better than that. 4K.
Yeah, I think 4K is good. 6K is about where we need to tap out. Like, it's fine. It's diminishing returns unless you need to zoom in on something.
I can't imagine it. You know, I think that I'm still looking at television in 720. Looks fine to me. Looks absolutely fine on the big screen too.
Yeah.
But this on the big screen, this is better than Netflix. I had it on my big screen. I went, Patrick, your quality's better than Netflix. It's better. I can't believe it. It's so sharp.
There was this thing that this little bit of information that I learned. This is entirely separate from this thing, from anything about learning art. So when we moved over to digital cameras from film cameras and everything, obviously there was a learning curve and everything, and we didn't have like the standards of 4K, 6K, 8K, any of these crazy things that were the way that people would shoot a film now. So the first Avengers film that everyone watched was captured digitally in 1080.
Yeah.
And that's fine. It looked incredible.
It looks incredible. It still does. I mean, look at Lawrence of Arabia. Still looks like $1 billion.
I mean, that was different. That's shot on good film. That film, that's big. That's the good stuff.
You can't beat film. Yeah.
There was another question here that this person is really insistent on. I was going to
Okay.
bring it up. They asked it multiple ways, so it almost made me not want to ask it, but I'm going to do it
Oh,
anyway.
do it, Stephen.
Ray Black is asking in here. They said, I have no intention of doing this traditionally.
Yeah.
I want to do this as a digital course. Why should a digital artist take this course? First and foremost, I would put forward, do you think, Ray Black, that there would be something different in watching someone draw traditionally that you wouldn't be able to apply besides the grip? And then I'm going to hand it over to Patrick. Why
Yeah.
should a person who's working predominantly digitally take this course?
Because it will expedite your digital powers. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Digital is just a tool. There's nothing else different between that and a pencil, apart from the pencil has a billion more sensitivities to it than any pen that's been developed yet. What you're learning here is how to draw. Whether you're doing it digitally, whether you're painting, and that's another big point as well, is that this has taught me to paint better because these shapes and these rhythms are just echoes all the way through to any medium you want. And if you're working digitally and you take this course, I guarantee you'll be a better artist digitally by the end of it. Guaranteed. That's the one guarantee I give to everyone. At the end of this course, you're a better artist. No doubt about it. So it's worth it for that. But yeah, I am definitely a better. Here's another point as well. I worked digitally for 10 years, right? And then a big show come up and I had to fill a gallery wall with oil paintings. And I had to do it within 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I haven't painted, it might have even been close to 15 years. I haven't painted in 10 years, let's say. I picked up that paintbrush and I thought this is impossible. And I was 15 minutes into that paint and I went, I am painting better than I did 10 years ago. How is this possible? And the reason why it was possible is I was drawing better, and it transferred the paint. So when I paint, I'm drawing with paint. It's as simple as that. Mm-hmm. So if you can draw, you are a better artist everywhere across all platforms. Yeah. If you can't draw, if you're relying on render and photo bashing, you're going to plateau to a point where you could be 20 years down the line and your art is no better than it was 20 years before. If you learn to draw, your art will get better and better and better, no matter what the platform. And that is an absolute guaranteed science. No doubt about it.
This is also one that's come up even from people that we work with who teach something like sculpting. They've talked about them learning to draw, informing their sculpting practice as well.
Yeah. Well, Michelangelo learned it. I mean, he taught us to draw. Michelangelo realized there was no point in sculpting until he drew something. And he was a big macho man. So he said drawing was for sissies and oil painting was for sissies because you could blend. He was using egg tempera, which, to be honest, if he hadn't been such an egotist, his Sistine Chapel would have been 10 times better. Sacrilege. It would have been sacrilege because he wasn't blending. He was just scrubbing. He would have done it faster. It would be more impressive. But if I get up to a Sistine Chapel, I go, it's a bit rough, that Michelangelo.
It's a bit rough. I need this YouTube video, Patrick. The Patrick's art history takes. I would watch that in a heartbeat, 10 times over.
Maybe we'll do one. I'd love to go and just walk around a gallery like Stan and Marshall did. Just walk around a gallery and just, because they're all dead now. So you can say anything you want. You can say, that guy, he missed tricep day. That guy there, he missed blending blacks that day. Look at it, looks like velvet. And I did have that conversation. I remember walking along and an artist friend of mine said, can you believe that artist was 22 when he painted this masterpiece? This is, of course you can. Look at those blacks. Yeah. Look at those blacks. It looks like someone's thrown Velcro on the picture. He obviously just got a tube of black and painted, and it's as dead and as flat as any black could possibly be. So yeah, I know he's 22. he missed mixing day because he had such an ego. He going, look at me, I can paint this gigantic canvas. And yeah, you can see it. You can always tell. Like I said, like Joshua Jacobo said the other day, you can always tell when someone traced a photo. You can always tell. I can always tell when someone doesn't know how to draw.
Yeah.
No matter how big the canvas is, no matter how impressive it seems to the untrained eye, it's a little short journey later when you go, boy, I used to think that was good. What was wrong with me? Well,
Mhm.
you hadn't learned to draw yet. That's what was wrong. And it's a shame because as I get older, I used to have loads of art books of all these artists I admired. And as I get older, I went, what was I thinking? And took them to the charity shop. And so I end up with just a smaller bunch of books because those people that impressed me no longer do
Yeah.
and never will again in the future. It was pointless even looking at their books because it was just bad method. But I don't want to diss anyone. I loved the art
Except for
they did,
Michelangelo.
apart from Michelangelo.
Yeah.
The Sistine Chapel could have been done in Wales. But, I just didn't. There's some artists I admire more now with experience, like Frank
Yeah.
Frazetta, Michelangelo. I admire them more now. That's an achievement. I admire them more now than I did then. And what I used to admire was deep rendered, almost photographic art. And
Mm.
today I can barely look at it. I just go, oh, it gives me a headache because it's a screaming match. It's just, ah, see what I did. Now, I don't want to say to the photorealists, I don't like your art, because if you can just put a little bit of yourself in there, maybe leave a bit unfinished or change the dynamics of the photo render that you're doing, you could be the best photo render artist in the entire world with no photo distortion in your work. And people who don't know about art and don't know the difference between what you've done and the next guy, they'll still feel it and they'll go, that is incredible.
Mhm.
And all the photo reference people that didn't put anything else in will, for a reason you can't tell yourself, but I know what it is the human element is not in those other pictures. It's a false sense of bravura. Whereas this one person photo rendered this stuff and knew how to draw and redesigned everything to their liking and still ended up photorealism. Amazing. It'll stand the test of time. Here you go. Learn to draw.
I like it. I
Very,
like it.
very simple. And learn to draw.
Yeah. Um,
Or, Stephen, I have to preface it one more time. Learn to love to draw.
yes. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I think there's definitely something different than just learning the academic part of the thing versus actually the process of it and the experience of it. Patrick, I think we've been from newsprint to drawing and back again. Is there
Yes.
anything that you want to mention about this course before we go to black screen?
I would say if this course existed, I often say when I was 22 and people go, well, what about when you were 15? It was just a formative year. I think 20, for me, 22, let's say a lot of people are leaving university at that time. It's probably that. It's probably that you're in a very precarious position where you're either going to render from photographs for the rest of your life and have a hard life, or if I had this course when I was 22, if I had this, oh my Lord, my journey would have been painless and expedited by 20 years.
Mm.
I have no doubt about that because the minute I met artists that could draw and I learned from them, my journey was expedited. And now you have this recorded, which I didn't have. They weren't recorded. I had to keep it up here.
Yeah.
So yeah, if I had this back then, look, it would be a no-brainer. I used to do because I had such a passion. If I had to eat or not eat, I was getting that Disney book, The Illusion of Life. And I starved for a week to buy that book. And that was okay because now I had the book. And I went on and those terrible things, the deal, eat as much pizza as you can all day. I went down there and ate all that. Boy, did I feel sick.
Yep.
But I had my illusion of life right there. And I just sat at Oxford Circus in London, just sticking this horrible bread dough in my face to get back the energy that I lost to buy this book.
That became the book. Yeah.
That book and pizza will be forever linked in my mind. And I will never go back to eat as much pizza as you can ever again. I'll never do that. It was that, let's say, less than pristine. It wasn't wood fire.
Yeah.
Let's just say that. I don't want to be ruinous to any business, but it was basically a chain. And I sat there and I went, and by the end of that day, I went, all all they've pumped into me is bread and tomato sauce, and that's about it.
It's like, yeah, it's some like the lowest quality cheese
It
possible.
was, I remember heaping the Parmesan cheese on to make something of it. Yeah, I emptied the whole thing.
I
Yeah,
did
there you
I
go.
did I did the exact same thing, Patrick. In art
But
school,
yeah,
I had saved my money so that over art school I would get to have a certain amount of money per month. And I
yeah,
was a very poor art student, you know.
yeah. Me
Um,
too.
I think it's a part of art being an art student. It prepares you for the part immediately after art school.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, no, I had this set amount of money that I would spend per month, and it went to, you know, like my main bills and everything. But I would skimp on my food so I could buy one Miyazaki art book per
wow,
month, and
that's
I still
great.
have those to this day.
Yeah,
They made all the difference to me as an art student. They make all the difference to me now. Like
yeah,
having those kind of materials are important, and this can be that for somebody. It doesn't have to be something that is a book or anything. If you get something on Proko, a course, or like an ebook from Patrick or anything like that, you have lifetime access to that for as
yeah,
long as Proko exists. And if for any reason you can't access those materials or you haven't downloaded them, which you can do on Proko, you have much bigger problems because Proko is not going away. It will never
yeah.
go away.
Yeah.
Proko is eternal. uh,
Turn.
yeah, damn right. Yeah, no matter what we have to do for that one, you will have the eternal access to be able to have access to your things. You can look at that stuff for the rest of your life.
That's like a portal to a secret place. So if I was to turn up at San Diego next week at lunchtime, would you guys still be playing cards? What was
We
that
did it
Russian
today.
game?
We
You
played
did?
Jirok every day. We did that today. I got 2 losses out of the 4 games, and I am
Yeah.
not happy about it, Patrick.
Yeah. And it's called Jirok.
Yeah, Jirok, I mean, roughly translates to fool in Russian. There's no winner, only
Yeah.
one loser for each
Oh, that's
match.
brutal. That is
Yeah,
brutal. Oh
yeah.
man. And do you get a funny hat to wear at the end or something?
We do. We keep
A
track of
fruit
them
hat?
all. We have an eternal turn. Like, well, I say eternal again. We have a tournament that runs forever. We keep track of all the scores, and you get a dunce cap at the end of the year.
Oh no. So
Yeah.
Proko is eternal. It is eternal.
Yeah, and the purchases that you guys make on Proko, where you guys get a book or an educational lesson or anything like that, or a course, those will live there alongside my Duroc dunce cap forever.
Yeah. Stephen in the corner. Oh dear.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah. Look, Stephen, thanks again. You know, you're such great company. Thanks for inviting me on and giving me the chance to draw. It's always been a privilege. I
Yeah,
can't wait to see you guys again.
yeah,
You know?
it's a joy. I can't wait for you to get to come back this way. If you
Yeah.
come into the US for Livebox or anything, let us know beforehand. We'll make a whole thing of
Lightbox.
it.
I still haven't seen Lightbox. I used to go to your
Oh.
LuxCon all the time, but Lightbox is it something? Is it something?
Lightbox is incredible
Isn't it?
for you, for any artist who's ever tried to think about what they should do for one social event or anything or one convention. Lightbox is the choice. Lightbox
If I
is a profound
yeah,
experience.
if I can beg a little seat by your Lightbox desk that I could sit on every time I've been walking around once, then I will go.
Yes. Yeah,
Is that a
absolutely.
guarantee?
Yeah.
Will it have a dunce
100%.
cap?
Yeah. That's what you said there. You have to wear this. I want to thank everyone for being here. Thank you guys so much. Remember, Patrick's course is on sale for 20% off, the lowest price that it will ever be again. Thank you
Thanks.
guys for being here. Thank you for spending your time with us. This will be available for anyone who's watching this live as a video on demand to rewatch a million times over. If you guys can't find your way to being able to buy a course right now, you don't have to, because you can just follow Patrick Jones and get his wisdom on the internet on this handle that you see right here.
Yeah.
As well as the Art Agents podcast, which you can get links to from that Instagram that I just put up there. Patrick, thank you, and have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, Stephen. You too.
Thank you. Have a good one, everybody.